Do the hard work, especially when you don't feel like it. And by the way, it's customary to give me a kiss at the end of every video.
Whoa, 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 hey, 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 hey.
Unless you've been living under a rock for the last couple of years, if you have any interest in the self-improvement space, you've probably come across a young man called Hamza. And Hamza's channel is centered around helping young men make their transition from Jeffrey, someone with bad habits like scrolling on social media, playing video games and fapping, to someone who exercises, meditates and journals, to keep it simple. And by just doing this, he's amassed hundreds of millions of views over the years and has probably helped hundreds, if not thousands of young men actually make improvements to their life. So, shout out to him. And if you don't believe me, just go on YouTube and look at all the Hamza Save My Life videos that are out there. Whatever he's doing is clearly working. And as an aspiring self-improvement YouTuber myself,
ooh, that's kind of small.
It's impossible to, deny his impact on the space in general. Because if you literally type in self-improvement onto YouTube, Hamza's videos will probably be one of the first videos you see. So if he's so great, such a nice guy, why have I started watching his videos, you ask? Well, if I'm being honest, Hamza's changed a bit. Yeah, I know. Let me explain. So to me, Hamza is a businessman first, a self-proclaimed cult leader second.
So welcome to the cult.
And then a self-improvement content creator third. And if you're like me, a bit older, a bit wiser, you could say maybe, hopefully, this has been quite apparent for some time now. Like Hamza's older content that was, a lot more bare bones, more raw, pause, basically just a lot more down to earth and more intimate, is long gone. And it's been replaced by high quantity, fast paced, surface level, clickbaity, and to be honest, sometimes pretty cringy content that is targeted at young men's insecurities, to be honest. I can't really shit on them too hard, and I'm sure these videos have helped a lot of, young teenagers who have never heard about self-improvement, introduce them to the whole idea, but they are pretty surface level and repetitive, I've got to be honest. People like me and like you, I suspect, who are a bit further down on their self-improvement journey, we know better. We know that self-improvement is a unique and different journey for every individual. And what worked for one may not work for another person. I can already hear, the stampede of teens run into the comments to call me a Jeffrey, but just hold back for a minute, let me explain. Hamza's done a really good job at cultivating his community. He's done so good a job, in fact, that they don't mind being referred to as a cult and hailing Hamza as their almighty cult leader. Is it a bit off to you, or is it just in me? Because when you actually look into who are the actual members of this cult, you probably won't be surprised to know that it mostly comprises of 14 to 19-year-old boys. It's starting to make a little bit more sense now, isn't it? And of course, no offense to, teenage boys. I used to be one of them, but teenage boys are probably, the most impressionable and desperate type of human out there. And especially nowadays, the average teenage boy in today's generation is probably the most lost, confused, addicted in human history. With fatherlessness on the rise, masculinity at all-time low, and masculinity being actually vilified in mass media, young men are desperate for, a sense of belonging and a sense of having a figure to aspire to be. And that is where Hamza slides in. By, adopting the figure of, big bro or father figure to some of you, he slowly convinces you of two things. One, that he is, the example of what it means to be a man, a Adonis. And two, that if you don't listen to him and agree with everything he says, that you are a loser. A feminine wimp, a Jeffrey.
Emotional damage.
But if we're being honest, Hamza is aware of the fact that so many young men lack role models, and due to this, they're less likely to question him, because he has everything that a lot of young men want these days: power, respect, status, looks, women, all the things that young men crave. And I've noticed that Hamza uses this position that he's put himself in as, being the leader, to his advantage, of course. And he does this by heavily policing and criticizing his young fan base. And since many of his fans are really young and don't actually have any first-hand experience in the real world themselves, they're a lot more likely to just take his word for truth and just listen to what he says. And if we're being honest, just by looking at his channel over the last how many months, you can really see there's been a change in his mindset. From quality, valuable content that was longer form, more focused, more in-depth, where the goal was, clearly to educate men on a certain topic in depth. Now the content is just high quantity, just churn it out there, get a thumbnail done, pass it to one of my 10 video editors, let's keep doing it, let's get it out there. It's almost like this content is made to be binge watched, which is something Hamza is apparently so against.
Consuming too much content, and even YouTube and even self-improvement YouTube videos just like this one may actually be one of your biggest problems right now. I'm gonna be totally honest, because that includes my videos.
But what's happened really is that Hamza's decided to monetize your pain, the pain of young men. He's decided to make it into his business. And fair enough to him, that's his choice. It's not like he's holding any of you at gunpoint, forcing you to watch his videos. Because he has stated in a previous video on his Unfiltered channel that his newer videos will be for, people that are younger and who aren't experienced in the self-improvement, etc. But I feel like young men won't be able to get as much valuable information from this new form of content he's doing. And it's because they're being constantly bombarded with it. And it's not like I'm, taking all accountability away from these men that are choosing to watch these videos, but a lot of them are in positions where they're mentally just not really there. Like, they're kind of able to binge watch almost anything that gives them a dopamine hit. And I feel like this will really stunt their growth on their self-improvement journey. And Hamza is now playing a part in that. It does make you think, like, what other core component of self-improvement is he willing to completely ignore other than dopamine detoxing in order to, fill his pockets and just keep your attention. But what Hamza fails to tell you is that a big part of being a man and advancing your self-improvement journey is making your own decisions and coming to your own conclusions. And by Hamza putting this negative label onto so many things, calling it Jeffrey or whatever, what he's done is actually robbed a lot of young men from the greatest teacher, which is experience. Almost any activity won't completely derail your self-improvement journey as long as you have balance in your life. And to be honest, this is a form of control. He uses shame as a tactic to control a lot of his younger fans. And this is something that's become really obvious to me. The thing is, shame is really addictive because these young men go from being shamed by Hamza to then adopting his ideas and then shaming others for not adopting those same ideas that they've just heard about. Because the truth is, Hamza does not have all the answers, neither do I, and neither does any content creator out there. Because a big part of the self-improvement journey is self-discovery. And that is basically just finding out who you truly are. And you can't do that if you never leave the Hamza bubble and the cycle of shame that it thrives off. Because life will present you with so many challenges and opportunities. But if you're too busy trying to live it by someone else's rulebook, living their life rather than your own, you will fail over and over again. And I know this from first-hand experience. Because as a man, you must live by your own rulebook. What's in your heart, your character and your values. And these are all unique to you. And you'll be doing yourself a really big disservice by just copy and pasting someone else's life onto yours because it won't fit. So am I saying to, boycott Hamza, cancel Hamza, get him out? No, I'm not saying any of that. I'm not. What I'm simply saying is that you shouldn't use his videos as a replacement for the actual work you have to do in your life. Because if we're being honest, you've probably watched enough self-improvement content to actually make some changes in your life. But you haven't because you're too reliant on guidance of people like Hamza, even people like me or other content creators. And that's because you don't trust yourself enough. And really that keeps you weak. What you need to do is take a leap and go out into the real world and get some battle scars. And stop using Hamza or any other content creator as a crutch for your addictions to content. Because I've got to be honest with you, Hamza is not your savior. And of course, Hamza is definitely worthy of being viewed as a mentor to a lot of young men who potentially don't have anyone else to go to or to advise them. But please don't confuse us with being infallible or being your cult leader. It is so cringe. And of course, he's accomplished a lot. He's just as flawed as any other man. So you should listen to a lot of different voices in the self-improvement space, whether they're experts or just other creators, and find the mix that actually works for you. And just remember, it's important to question everything. Question what Hamza says, question what I say. Like, it's important to approach all this content that you consume with a analytical brain. So don't just view it as facts. I want you to view it as just a viewpoint. So if you're slightly more advanced in your journey, I really recommend, if you are going to watch Hamza's content, I do recommend you watch his older content, his full guides, because I feel like that's really where a lot of his most valuable content lies. Because if I'm being honest, I don't think there's anything for you in his newer content other than a dopamine hit and the full sense of accomplishment you get from binge watching his videos. No hate to Hamza, I just wanna, make sure that's out there. Because he's done a lot of great things for young men around the whole world. And that's something I really aspire to do as well. Especially by creating a community for young men to thrive in. Something that I feel is really valuable, especially for people doing self-improvement, because it can really feel like a very lonely and isolating experience. I do feel like he has lost his way recently and has started to, monetize your pain and kind of just profit off it, which is kind of rubbing me the wrong way a bit. And it's not very Adonis of you, Hamza, is it? You naughty boy. So if you do want to see a different perspective on self-improvement, or if you're just curious about what this guy has to say about other topics, feel free to check out this video and check out my channel. Anyway, I'll see you in the comments. Alright, peace.